the middle ground between a system that is blatantly and unabashedly allowing people to die from being both poor and sick, and the system that the rest of the world uses to ensure people's health. In the debate of U.S. healthcare, it is often overlooked that every scientific, reputable source shows that single payer is more popular and more affordable and more effective at keeping people healthy than the current system. So Tapper is neutral, but he is not objective, even if that opinion is informed by the raw data collected by the Mercatus Institute and the WHO. On display in this example is what happens when neutrality allows the Overton window to be shifted by radicals. The solution to this form of bias is difficult to pinpoint. The first issue to be addressed is that this is widely viewed, especially in pop media, as good journalism. When Joe Rogan allows anyone, no matter how outlandish, to speak on his podcast, this is regarded as the battle of ideas. However, Rogan fails to fact-check the themes of those extremes. Then, those whose opinions are based in data will be drowned out by those who don't understand the data. What I'm saying is, in general, journalists, reporters are biased. If they are biased anyway, and they are trying to present themselves as objective, then they are already being dishonest. So, the solution, therefore, is for them to admit their biases up front and deliver the news as sort of if-then statements. If you want to make the most people have affordable and quality health insurance, then the best possible system is Medicare for all. That is an objective statement. It can't be wrong, but it also informs that the bias is wanting to have a healthcare system that is the best for those two things, and not necessarily the best for a profit motive. The second issue here is that the veneer of objectivity can be placed over bigoted or untrue sentiments through misinterpretation, misrepresentation, misunderstanding of data, and another misword. Beyond data, most people seem to be aware that ad hominem attacks are fallacies. There is a taboo around being too mean or too rude. Through implication or outright use of the term, claiming ad hom is being used in situations where the bare facts do a disservice to the establishment, and it's a dodge. Tulsi Gabbard is competing for the Democratic nomination in 2020. The DNC recently decided that polls which would have let her into the September debates were not qualifying polls. This is not the first time that Gabbard has faced this kind of issue. Gabbard's central message is one about the injustice and the corruption of American empire. Specifically, Gabbard is against making enemies that, quote, do not pose a direct threat to the United States. In other words, she wants to end regime change wars, and the arguments surrounding them would allegedly be struck down by her administration. Gabbard has many times been asked if she is an Assad apologist after meeting with the regime. Despite Gabbard's views not being just matters of opinions, but demonstrably true on multiple levels, Assad's regime, as well as most the US is at war with, doesn't have the financial tools or the physical tools to pose any kind of meaningful threat to America. Despite this, a push for regime change is underway. 70% of Americans don't support the wars we are in, and they don't support being in another one. The endless wars have hurt the US spending patterns, trust abroad, and the economy in general. Again, all of those things are objective and demonstrable. Put simply, by any measurable metric, Tulsi Gabbard is correct on this stance. Nevertheless, she is challenged the most here. When she challenges DNC, they claim she's attacking the organization. The example extends to Andrew Yang. In the first round of the Democratic debates, Yang had his microphone turned off, stripping him of the ability to interject. While interrupting was, in fairness, against the rules, it was clear that Kirsten Gillibrand was able to speak out of turn. There are multiple clips showing Yang attempting to speak, but without the audio feed. He makes no noise. In spite of this being demonstrably true, the DNC and MSNBC claimed Yang was lying and also insulting and attacking the organizations. Claiming ad hominem when objective, albeit embarrassing, events occur is journalistic malpractice and also commonplace. but we'll get to that. This comes from the neutrality bias. Remaining neutral and open to attacking both sides of an issue from the center means that you run the risk of falling in the middle of a far-right extremism and a moderate social democrat policy. In other words, power in the political discourse shifts to the right, or whoever's the most radical. Having an educated opinion is not the same as having no opinion. To an untrained eye, it looks as though lacking an opinion would force journalists to report based on raw data and objective facts. Journalism is done by humans, which means it's done by people who have opinions, and those opinions are often going to affect the narrative, whether that be by the journalist allowing their opinion to color their delivery or by overcorrections to the point of refusal to challenge ideas they think are wrong. Take Ben Shapiro. Ben isn't technically a journalist, but he's a political commentator. His show is where some people get their news. Ben has often used statistics related to black crime in order to color his narrative. He's never related those back to long-term cultural issues. His bias then is depicted as neutrality. Facts don't care about your feelings. If this is a conscious decision, then he's a liar, or at least misleading people. If it's incidental, then Ben has attempted to be neutral, but let his worldview color the narrative anyway. The latter is more problematic because it's a failure of journalistic integrity, and it could be done by any journalist. The wider issue here is that the foundation, or perceived foundation, of ethical journalism is flawed. Bias, opinion, and insult need to be the norm and not the taboo in news. In essence, the goal of objective journalism is a good one, but it's relatively impossible to achieve. Honesty in journalism is not. If Shapiro or Cuomo are upfront about their bias and their opinions, they clarify what is commentary and what is raw fact, then the populace can make more informed decisions about news consumption. False neutrals come from an attempt to take no sides. However, given the correct thesis, there are objectively correct sides. It is objectively true that Medicare for All is the most effective way to get high-quality medical coverage to everyone in a way which is comprehensive. By looking to any system or country outside of the US for Medicare for All, it becomes clear that the neutral standpoint and the objective standpoint are the same, but they may come off as a bias. Any debate on what the best medical care system is just dishonest journalism at this point. Not only is journalism culture in the USA broken, the foundational premises of what constitutes good coverage is a blatant misread of how to reach the truth. Due to the constant competition of news, perceived correctness and fairness is being placed as a top-tier goal, when that goal should be honesty. The unfortunate truth about TV news can be summed up by their viewership numbers, and those are dropping. The same is true for print media. While both of these are important endeavors, there seems to be an ever more common tactic of attacking online media. Whether it be claiming the largest independent creator on YouTube is a racist, or refusing to take campaigns that have immense popularity online seriously, the news media seems to be attempting to maintain the established order. In that order, they have a massive amount of both money and control over the narratives which Americans consume. That station is not one which is easily abandoned. The CNN debates, for example, are not a public service, mandated in some way to ensure everyone has access to it. In fact, the CNN debates are copyright, and CNN abused fair use commentaries of those debates through flag systems, hurting popular independent creators in a digital and illegal fashion. Despite this, more than 75% of teens, 13 to 17-year-olds, say it's important for them to follow current events. Yet over half of them get their news from YouTube and social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook, according to a poll from SurveyMonkey and Common Sense Media. I believe this is because of a different style and preference for journalistic integrity. Rather than striving for neutrality, especially the neutral ground of the establishment, journalists, pundits, commentators on YouTube are striving for objectivity. However, they are extremely upfront about their bias, which helps inform audiences as to how their information may be skewed. The if-then statement. It's a question of values. The system is more informative than that skew, that bias being hidden, and the swayed opinions being presented as facts. The schism at play between independent media and establishment media encourages the sort of dishonesty seen with the Andrew Yang debacle. Debacles like this, however, do not encourage viewers to continue watching the most popular sources. The Washington Post, going back on an article about how 500,000 bankruptcies being caused by medical debt in order to give Bernie Sanders 3 Pinocchios in the same statistic, seems to be a prime example of preservation of established media, over established media being consistent and honest. In fact, the Washington Post fact-checker is the penultimate symbol of the failures of journalism. Neutrality is viewed as objectivity, and neither is adequately achieved. The headlines here run rampant with qualitative statements, and the articles display little consistency on how the degrees of the lies are determined. All too often, the punchy clickbait titles oppose new media, and while they often land on an answer I agree with, their claims are not designed to be quantified. Sensationalism, hidden opinions, and a misguided sense of their own ethics and importance will lead to the downfall of establishment medias. Ideologies, if-then statements, presenting your hypothesis before your interpretation, make news more honest. It's hard because it's so much line delivery in a row. It's easy to just kind of fuck it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. So if you're still here, congratulations. You have a phenomenal attention span because this is a big, long video. My name is Nick, the Politic, and I'll be doing more videos like this. This video is kind of a mission statement to explain what I'll be doing on this channel, which is talking about politics with my own personal bias involved. I want to thank O'Shea for making this video with me. He did all of the shooting and editing for it, so he's a hero. I'll have a link to his channel in the description. If you liked what you saw here and you want to see more, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, all of that stuff. See you next time.